top stories that we have been following for you. And of course, we have been talking about the attempted assassination that we saw for Donald Trump the second time. And now it is bleeding over into other congressmen and women. We want to show you this. This was put out by Paulina Luna, representative from Florida, saying today, my office has received a very serious shooting threat. This division and hate campaign against Republicans is going to get someone killed. I will not be threatened, intimidated, or bow down to those using violence as a means to push their agenda. We will win. And now joining me from Capitol Hill is Representative Luna. Thanks so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox. And first off, I'm sorry that this had to happen to you and your office. When did you receive the threat and how was it conducted?
We received the threat hours after the second assassination attempt on President Trump. I can't go too much into the details and natures of what was in the message because it is a very serious and active investigation currently. But just know that, I have a 1-year-old baby at home, and when you're seeing these come in and you're getting calls from law enforcement about it, it definitely puts it in perspective that this job has increasingly become dangerous, and I would largely say it's because of Republicans, conservatives being labeled as extremists and, threats to democracy. When you have that type of rhetoric, it has implications.
This political rhetoric has become very hateful and divisive. In the past, you look back in the 50s and 60s when Republicans, Democrats, they didn't when they didn't work on issues, at the end of the day, you can just go out to dinner and still have a conversation with them. Now it seems like everything is very different on the political landscape.
It was, I will say this, and I've worked with a number of Democrats on certain issues, especially those affecting Florida. But what I've realized is I believe it's largely due to the media framing and really villainizing certain members of Congress. I'm one of the youngest Hispanic elected members of the Republican delegation. In fact, I am the youngest member of the Republican delegation. So I think that whenever you break out of that mold and that stereotype of what they want you to be, I think that you're then treated like a threat. And unfortunately, we saw this happen and play out with President Trump, not just one, but now 2 assassination attempts, one of which he was actively shot. And then you have other foreign actors obviously soliciting, attempts on members of Congress and other elected officials. And so what I will say is that, if you are in a situation where you can correct that type of rhetoric, I ask you to do so because we're real people. We have families at home, but this is a really serious threat that we're facing, and it shouldn't be happening in our country. And I vehemently think that all of that rhetoric needs to stop before someone gets killed.
Has President Trump reached out to you?
He has not yet, but what I will say is that President Trump and I have an incredible relationship. I actually receive letters from him on a regular basis, and I'm talking handwritten letters. But I know that he is really focusing on his election right now, and I expect a text from him probably soon. But it's awful that we're having to see this gearing up to being, I think, 47 days out from an election. But I do think he's going to win, and what I will say is that we're not going to bow down or cower to any of this rhetoric or hate campaigns, smear tactics, or intimidation. It's not going to work. We're going to win, and we're going to really restore America to what it was.
When you heard of the second time there against Donald Trump on his life, do you feel that there could be a third time before the election for Donald Trump?
In all seriousness, yeah, I don't think they're going to stop. I think that he needs to take, and he knows this, his family knows this, take his security very seriously. But what I will also say is that happened, and then we received hours later the threat to us, and that is being investigated, taken seriously. So, it's definitely a volatile time, and it's a scary time to be in politics, for sure.
And how do you and your family come to grips with this? At the end of the day, you are just trying to do a job. You work on Capitol Hill. You have a home, of course, in Florida. And then to hear and receive threats on your life, on your family, how, at the end of the day, do you try to cope with that and take it all in?
It's a lot. You know, I'm a new mom. I just had my son a year ago. So I obviously, first and foremost, think about my family safety, making sure my husband's okay. But my husband and I both served in the military. And so I don't think that this has been something that we haven't thought of. Unfortunately, because of the natures of our job, you just never think that it's going to be at home where you now live, not in a war zone. But what I will say is that we have a lot of prayer. We have a lot of people praying for us. We have a lot of faith in our local officers and also the sheriff's department. The FBI has been working with us closely, Capitol Police. And so we have to trust that people have our backs. But yeah, it's interesting. Trust in God and just hope that you get through it, right?
And lastly, it seems like women in Congress are the ones that get attacked the most, verbally and in other forms as well. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because you've talked about it in the past.
Yeah, I actually have talked to Capitol Police about this, and female members, regardless of party affiliation, are actually the most targeted for harassment and violence. And I think that that goes into sometimes, unfortunately, human nature, and that women being seen as weaker and sometimes being more of an easier target. And so it's not just myself, but they've seen, especially with the rise in social media, a large targeting of female members and stalking campaigns. And so, unfortunately, social media is kind of, that's the double-edged sword of it, and we have seen an increase in those complaints, attacks, and also an increasing insecurities for members of Congress, specifically for females.
Representative Luna, thanks so much for taking the time out. I'm sorry this happened to you and your family as well as your staff. Stay safe, and we'll continue to think about you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You take care. And we'll continue to follow that story and so much more right here on Live Now from Fox. We are going to take another 2-minute break. Stay right here with us. More to come in just moments on Live Now.